welcome back to the Masterclass, the Manchester United tactical podcast brought to you by Manscaped. I am Haider, as you guys all know, and I'm joined by Rob Blanchette today. As ever, Manchester United have just lost to the Basement Boys. It sounds a little bit disrespectful, but they are sitting at the bottom of the table. Hardly got a sniff this season. 2-1. Rob, horrendous performance, horrendous result. Where do we start with this? There's so much to unpack. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling? I'm really dejected. I'm trying not to get too upset about it, but it's very, very difficult when Manchester United have done so much good in the last 2 months, and to come up with a performance like this when it matters as well shows why this side probably isn't going to win the title and isn't ready to win the title yet.
Well, people say my catchphrase is never get too high, never get too low. Well, today we get too low. Today we strip it back a little bit and we talk about why United were in this position today in this game, why they lost this match, and what's actually happening and kind of the widescreen effect of Manchester United's tactics, selections, and everything else that goes with it. Let's just unpack the result. We lost this game. I don't think Sheffield United deserved to win this game. No chance. They played okay. They played a low block and they hit United with a couple of counter punches. We can talk about the goals and we will. And there are faults on all of them. I'm not going to get into the depths of VAR and refereeing and things like that, but we will talk about those bits later on in the show. But you can never carry more than maybe one or two in a football match if you want to win a game in the Premier League. And there's always this issue with Manchester United that when we rotate, that we might well end up carrying one or two or maybe more. And today, Ole chose to rotate because he's playing one of the teams in the bottom three, the worst team in the division. And he got punched in the face for it. It's kind of as simple as that. If you decide to make your rotations in these kind of games and you're giving players minutes to players that haven't played matches, there's every chance that your chemistry will collapse. Today, United's chemistry, it wasn't the worst performance ever. I've seen United play worse than that and win football matches. But today, they just didn't have enough against a low block that was going to stay tight for the whole 90 minutes, which is exactly what it did. And United needed more creativity and a little bit more fizz from the front four, and it didn't come. And you get nights like that. You know, you have to find a way in. And what happened? United got their goal from who? Harry Maguire. You know, so you need that on a night like tonight. You need to get a set piece that works. That's what happened. But we're going to look at two or three players. One player I'd like to talk about mainly tonight is Anthony Martial, a player that I've backed 100 times on this show and other shows. And, you know, he let me down today in terms of my opinion, but he really did let his manager down today. And I think his performance as a centre forward and then his second half role on the left for that second goal that Sheffield United scored, that comes from his mistake at the top of the pitch. And it also comes from his mistake dropping back in because he needs to cover that. He needs to come back in the channel and defend. And he stands on the edge of the box with his hands behind his back. And if there's ever been a metaphor for a player's performance, that is it.
I can't argue with any of that, Rob. NZZZ has got a comment here saying, how can we have to play Short and Cavani 3 times a week? Squad depth, yes, but not good enough. Look, before the game, I looked at the team. 4-2-3-1, Rob, Matic and Pogba back in the double pivot. Axel and Telles in, and a big opportunity for Axel today. I thought he looked undercooked. Don't blame him. Again, what we saw from Van der Beek the other day against Liverpool, when they haven't played for a long time and you put them back into the team, there just didn't seem to be much chemistry, understanding between him and Maguire tonight. Then you saw Alex Telles come in as well. Big opportunity for him. Then the front three that you really like, and it is probably, well, it was our best front three last season, Rashford, Martial and Mason. And when I looked at it, I thought, right, 6 changes tonight. And yet we started with Axel, Telles, Matic, Pogba, Rashford, Martial. We got to rest Lindelof, Bailly, Shaw, McTominay, Fred, Van der Beek, and Cavani. So before the game, I thought, this is brilliant. United have enough squad depth to rest people like Cavani. But what we saw tonight was terrible. I mean, you know, last season we had about 12, 13 players that Ole could rely on, I would say. Now I'd say it's about 16, 17. So this is my thoughts before the game. We have depth. But Rob, today, those changes, 6 changes, actually hindered us. It was too much in these important games. We've said this before in this podcast. 3 changes max can disrupt a team. 6, it just did not work tonight, did it?
No, it didn't work. And I tweeted one word just before the game, and the word was nervous. And the reason why I was nervous is because you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a genius at football tactics to know that this Manchester United team struggles when there's changes, whether they're enforced changes through injury or whether it's just that Ole's had to rotate for some reason or the other. Now, there's no doubt, again, when you looked at the shape of the team, the formation, the actual selection, it's not a bad selection. It's not a bad set of tactics. United, as I said, didn't actually play that badly on the night. It's just that they're playing a team stylistically that know how to stop them in a low block. You know, if you play low block against Manchester United, you've got a really good chance of stopping them. The bigger issue for me is how do all the moving pieces work when you've made those changes? What happens to the dynamic of the team? How effective do they become? How can they beat teams? You know, do you become more defensively rigid and unstable at crucial moments just because people are just that yard off because the team's changed? Like you said there about Tuanzebe, you know, I think Tuanzebe wasn't great today. You know, he picked up a booking in the first half that kind of hamstrung him in terms of performances. And that was a problem. You know, he didn't look particularly comfortable today. But as you said, he hasn't played games. That's how it's going to be. If you're rusty, you're rusty. But it's more the combination effect, Haider, of all of it together. It's not the individual bits. It's how it comes together and how you lose a football match like this, where the opponent literally has nothing in the attack. They didn't have anything. Let's be honest. You know, we'll look at all three goals tonight, and we'll kind of break them down and see the pros and the cons. But United allowed themselves to lose this football match. Sheffield United didn't do a lot tonight. They just tried to stop United at the right end, which is their right. It's their job. I never moan in these situations. You always hear like Klopp, you know, and maybe Guardiola talking about teams parking the bus. Look, you've got to expect it. This is the team at the bottom of the division fighting for their lives. They're going to park the bus. And today they got away with it. On another night, United don't concede that first goal. United maybe score 2 or 3. It becomes an easy night. It's a real fine margin in terms of, do you win a game like this or even do you lose it? United lost it because at those 2 vital moments, they made errors and they just carried 2 or 3 players tonight they didn't need to carry. And, you know, I would say 2 or 3 let their manager down tonight. I think in the sense that Ole is rotating is because he trusts these players now, because in a year, they've got him to the top of the league. This squad got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to the top of the league through his leadership. And yet on a night like tonight, it just kind of fell apart. It wasn't a tactical issue tonight. Yes, it was the selection, but it was those fine margins that Manchester United are not very good at when they played a low block.
Same problems we see all the time, Rob. I mean, look, I'm just going to go through a few statistics here. So in 50% of our games this season, we've gone behind. That's 10 out of the 20. And that's from United Arena. He put that up during the game. So our opponents have obviously scored first. Now, another game you go behind, we've said this before, it's not sustainable. You cannot keep on going behind and expect to win games. Eventually, it's going to catch up with you. And we've had such fantastic form. We've shown great resolve to come back. But you can't keep doing that. You can't keep making these mistakes. That's 8 Premier League goals now conceded from set pieces. We've spoken about problems at set pieces. I mean, let's break down that goal, Rob. David De Gea has to be doing better there. It's not a surprise to me. David De Gea has done this ever since he's come to the Premier League. He's not strong commanding his area. And these recurring problems, whether it's him, I thought Axel as well missed the header. Personally, I thought he should have got there or he should have done better. These problems, Rob, are what's going to hinder United getting to that next level. You can't make these mistakes week in, week out and expect to go and win titles. United have conceded, what is it, nearly 26, 27 goals now this season in 20 games. It's not good enough, really. The defense is still leaking goals, and it doesn't matter how many you score, you need to be able to be tighter at the back.
A goal is a goal is a goal at the end of the day. If it's a good goal, fine. If it's a bad goal, fine. When we look at that first goal, my first feeling was exactly what you just said there, that David De Gea has got to do better. When you actually look at the replay from the side and from behind, he clearly is fouled. Clearly. When you're jumping for a when you're jumping for a ball and someone doesn't, it wasn't just a push, Haider. Yeah, if you watch it from the side, Billy Sharp puts his whole body through the back of David De Gea's back. His whole body. Yeah, he's stumbling forward and he deliberately makes contact and he absolutely shoves De Gea pretty hard. So I am going to give De Gea a pass on that one, because if he doesn't get shoved in the back, he clearly punches the ball clear. Simple as that. So you're right. Historically, David De Gea has never been great in that scenario where he's maybe pinned to his line. He's made those mistakes in the past. But tonight, that was about VAR. VAR was invented for those moments where a referee cannot see in a melee what happens. When you see the replay from the side, which is what VAR comes from, they use that camera. It is pretty clear that it's not inconsequential contact, which is what you get at corners. It is consequential contact. He goes through him like a train through his back. It is a foul. So we don't need to talk about the other bits, because you could say that Tuanzebe mistimes his jump. You could say that Manchester United are terrible from corners and for set pieces. We've unpacked that relentlessly over the season. But that goal comes because VAR misses or decides that that moment is not a clear and obvious error. It was a clear and obvious error. Now, also just to conjoin that, because I think the two moments are matched, obviously there's the other end of the pitch where Harry Maguire goes up with Ramsdale. And the reason why VAR cannot check that is because the referee prematurely blows his whistle too early. The referee should allow the ball to go into the net, then make his decision for the foul. Therefore, VAR can then check the call. VAR cannot check the call because the referee has blown his whistle and stopped play. So when Martial slots the ball away, and might have been a different night for Martial if that goal stands, we might be talking completely different here now. But that moment, again, is a refereeing error. So two huge officiating calls that went against Manchester United, which on a night when you don't play particularly well, go against you. As I say, it's the perfect storm, is that if you don't play well, the whistle doesn't help you. And we've had the whistle help United throughout the season. Of course, VAR calls are gone for United. United have had penalties, all sorts, with maybe 50-50 calls. So people will say that there is this kind of, cyclical effect that eventually calls will go against you. But when you look at those two calls, they were both horrendous calls. But the Billy Sharp call is criminal. It is criminal. When you go through someone's back of a goalkeeper, goalkeepers get protected, as Ramsdale was at the other end of the pitch. And yet in that moment, David De Gea, it happened against Everton last season, didn't it? Exactly the same, where I think, was it Dominic Calvert-Lewin went up and smashed David De Gea in the air, and VAR just went, there was like nothing. It's like it didn't happen. So that's one thing. So we've looked at that and we can unpack that, and we can say that goal is a slice of misfortune for Manchester United, and also for Anthony Martial's goal, which should have stood had the referee just kind of held it for 1 second. But he blew his whistle when Maguire goes up with the goalkeeper, which is completely bizarre because Maguire's got his back to the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And therefore
he just outjumped him. That was it.
You see that Ramsdale's actually going over the top of Maguire. So it's clear that Maguire's holding the space. So therefore, it's actually the goalkeeper making the move that could be deemed a foul. It's not a foul because his hands are extended and he's going over the top, but he just drops the ball. That's all he does. So that was a bad moment for United. And when that was all happening, those two moments, I thought, oh, is this going to be the night? Because as soon as you lose a goal like that and have a goal of your own chalked off, it's then very, very difficult to win a football match.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. I mean, look, I thought, what is the difference between Maguire? Maguire went for the ball. Sharp didn't have any intention of going for the ball. He went in with his shoulder. It's just, look, that was a terrible decision. But then when you move on to the rest of the other goal, let's talk about the second goal before we move on to, because we need to talk about Martial. But that second goal as well, Rob, was just absolutely, it just epitomized United's, I want to say, effort in the game, because I felt like there were certain players that didn't look at it. They didn't look like their head was in the game. How does Ollie Burke get two passes in the box unchallenged? How, Rob? Manchester United are hoping to go to the top of the table. That is enough desire. That is enough to make you chase every single ball. And I just don't understand, because, Rob, we've seen this many, many times where this side, sometimes when it matters, they can't get over the line. Now, Martial has to be called out for this because he lost the ball and he ambled back and just stood there. And when the goal goes in, he's hands in the air. You can't carry players like that, Rob. You can't carry players who aren't there for the cause every single game, every single week. And like you said at the beginning, the problem with Manchester United over the last 7 years is when players have an awful game, it's not just 1 or 2, it's 5 or 6, it's half the team. And at that point, then you're really struggling. And today felt like what we've seen the past 7 years, where United huffed and puffed. Like, you look at the bottom, Sheffield United had 5 shots on target, 24% possession. They didn't deserve to win this game. United allowed them to win this game. But you have these situations, Rob, and if Manchester City went and won 5-0. You know, in that moment, I do truly believe in that moment, United have blown it. That's how I feel today.
You feel like that because we all feel like that because we're football fans, and you feel like that because you're emotional. So the whole point of this is let's unpack it and let's look at what really is the issue. That point you made there was something I was going to make later on in the show. Manchester City yesterday won 5-0 because that's what you do when you play a bad team or a team at the bottom of the division. You go, you spank them, and you walk away and you cruise and you take a least amount of energy to get the maximum result. Don't forget, you only need to win a game 1-0 to get 3 points. But if you win it 5-0, great. It's great for your goal difference. It's like getting 4 points for the win rather than the 3. So Manchester City have got that in-depth championship winning mentality because they've been there and done it. And we used to be like that. You know, we were the team that were like that. We had that championship mentality. Now, of course, this is a new set of United players going for a title. They're in the title conversation, but we do know what their deficiencies are. But let's talk about the second goal, because we have to kind of look at what it represents and why the goal happened. Now, it's very, very easy to look at the sequence. So when the ball's in the final third, obviously you could say that De Gea could have kicked the ball away further. You could say that the defense on that side, that Telles was not close enough to his man, that maybe he was kind of slightly out of position. It all was a bit of a mess. But the goal comes from a really poor pass from Anthony Martial in the other end of the pitch, the final third for Sheffield United, where United are obviously trying to get a winner, you know, at 1-1. United are trying to break the lines and trying to find their way. Anthony Martial loses that ball. The ball goes in transition. It goes down the other end of the pitch on Sheffield United, getting the ball as far away from their goal as possible. That was kind of what they were trying to do rather than score. And when the ball gets in the box and it's all a bit of a mess, you see that Anthony Martial actually makes the recovery run, and he stops on the edge of the box and puts his hands behind his back. And he puts his hand behind his back, and then the space between him and Telles and the space between Telles and Tuanzebe is warped. And people will blame the defenders for that, but it's not the defenders' fault. It's actually Martial's fault. And you know what? Marcus Rashford did exactly the same thing on the other side earlier on, just before. He came back, and rather than going with his man, he just stood off him. And I think there are reasons for Rashford having a bad performance again tonight. You know, he's injured, and I don't know why he plays when he's injured. I want him to sit on the sidelines when he's got knocks. But Ole always plays him with injuries, always. You know, just without fail. You know, that's
always.
That's a prerogative of the manager again, but the manager just has to decide that, and that's how it is. You know, it's like live and die by your results and your decisions.
Rob, what do you think about this comment quickly from JD Scully? Guys, thank you for your comments. Keep them coming in. We want to hear all of them. Whether you're happy, whether you don't think, it's as bad as it feels right now. You know, maybe it's just because we're in the emotion, but let us know what you think. Can't blame the striker on the defense.
Yes, you can.
I believe that's in reference to Martial. You 100% can, because your job.
You absolutely can.
He's on the wing as well, so he's tracking back. He has to still do his defensive duties.
Your first defender is your centre forward, right? So in any game, your first defender is your centre forward. So that's where it starts. So that includes being neat and tidy at the top end of the pitch. That means not getting caught in transition with a sloppy ball. And that means that if there's any way, shape or form that you can get back to help because you made that mistake, that is what you do. I don't like saying players are not locked in. I don't say players don't have maybe concentration or motivation or all of that. I want to stay away from that, because I tell you what, the 11 guys who will be hurting most today are the players who lost this football match, not us. We'll go away and we'll spit and scream and get annoyed and we'll talk about it until we're blue in the face. It's their professions. They will be devastated by this loss. Devastated. They will go into Carrington tomorrow and it will be like a funeral. That's how it will be. So first and foremost, let's not pretend that that players don't care or they care less than us. Let's not do that, because that's not true. What it is, it's about decisions, Haider. And Anthony Martial's decision-making in that moment from losing the ball was really, really poor, and also reflective not just of his 90 minutes in the game, but maybe reflective of his wider season. You know, we've all said, how do you get the most out of Anthony Martial? You know, what do you do? I think we saw today that as the number 9, he wasn't cutting it for 45 minutes. I'd have pulled him at halftime. That's what I tweeted out.
That was where Ollie, I think, did make a mistake. Mason should have stayed on. He should have come off. I didn't understand that decision.
Oh, no, I understood it, but I didn't agree with it. So I understand exactly why he does it, because he's pulling the young lad off that hasn't had minutes, who's not maybe fit enough to go to full 90. That's what he's thinking. This guy, pull him off. He's had another hour. That's good for him. It means that he's going to be fitter. That means I can use him in weeks to come, etc., etc., etc. He's sticking with Martial because Martial in the last 12 months has given him what he needs from his striker. He has. You know, whether we like it or not, he did score the goals last year. He did get assists. But this year, there has been something different. We've all highlighted that. But as a manager and as a man manager, you've got to stick with your guy sometimes. You've got to say to him, pump him up, pat him on the back and say, come on, I'm with you. But of course, there's a breaking point, isn't there? There's a moment where you go, right, I've stuck with him now. Well, that's the issue for Anthony Martial now. This game kind of wipes that slate clean. Anthony Martial gets no props anymore. That's that. Yeah. And there'll be plenty of people that will kill Anthony Martial for the wrong reasons. And there'll be plenty that will also kill him for the right reasons. And the right reasons was today that his decision-making was not good enough. In that moment, you need to drop back into that space, because if you do, then you're putting pressure on the shooter who's got the ball there, and he doesn't get that shot off cleanly because you're 1 yard from him rather than being 5 yards from him. This is what the margins are in Premier League football. And this is why if you do give up there, like, people can look at that and say, why did he stand on the edge of the box? It's because he thinks that's his job. He thinks, well, I did my job. I got to the edge of the box. This is what I'm told to do. Fill back in. And then if the ball drops back out, I'm here. But that's not what you do. What you do is what Bruno Fernandes does. You get a full distance. You chase till the end. You get the blocking. Look at Cavani. Cavani came on and 3 or 4 times had to make recovery tackles from the centre forward position. And he had to drop back into midfield to make a tackle and got United going on the front foot. Now, did we see Martial do that once today? Nope. Did we see Rashford do that once today? Nope. This is a problem. It's about decision making. When do these guys maybe take a rest in games, go, I'm tired, so I just need to kind of hold my position for a bit? Or times where you kind of go, no, do you know what? I've just got to go. I've just got to go and help my team. In that moment for the second goal, I 100% blame Anthony Martial. I don't blame the defenders. You can make mistakes when you're under pressure like that, like they did. You know, you could say that Tuanzebe kind of turns his back. Should he stand up and take it in the face? You know, we talk about these things quite a lot in terms of bravery or decision making. The
shot should never have been taken off, Rob. That's the
shot point. Should never have come. The shot should never have come, but the whole play should never have come. The play starts 30 seconds before Haider. It's the start of the play which comes from the mistake at the other end of the pitch. That is where the defensive error happens when United are attacking. So this is what kind of makes me angry and upset and kind of pulled apart, because in that moment, one player exposes 4 or 5. And yes, in some scenarios, then maybe one of those 4 or 5 save you. You know, say Tuanzebe gets the block or Tellers gets tighter to the man because that's Tellers' side. Then of course it doesn't happen. There's no goal, and you kind of breathe a sigh of relief, if I can get my words out. But in that moment, I want my forward to get back and help. He does not help enough. He does what he thinks he should, but to stand on the edge of the box with your hands behind your back is unacceptable. And if I'm Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I'm ripping that boy's head off when I see him next. Yeah, absolutely, Rob. Let's dive a little bit more into the front three as well. I mean, look, what I thought today is that they weren't running the channels. We've said this many times on the show. They weren't running the channels. They were coming deep too much. And what frustrates me, Rob, is that too many, they all do the same thing. No one's making those runs. The front three were not moving enough today. And you saw that when Cavani came on. Cavani is 33 years old, Rob. He shouldn't be playing 3 games in a week. And this is what I said before the game, that I expect Martial to play, not because I think
He's better than Cavani, because a lot of people said, no, Cavani's better. Cavani's 33. He's injury prone. He missed half the season last season for PSG. You can't be relying on him week in, week out. And something you said weeks and weeks ago, that if Cavani's your, I suppose, what you're looking to build your team around, then that's a problem, isn't it, Rob? Because he's here for a year, maybe another year, and then you've got an issue. So I understand what Ollie's trying to do in terms of building it around these three young lads. And we saw at the end of last season, Rob, they've got it in their locker. But the problem is now, I think with Martial in particular, Rob, you can have poor form, you can miss chances, but there's something wrong there, as you've mentioned. There's something, like, I don't want to talk about attitude or motivation, but there is something wrong. He's off his game, and it doesn't seem to be just a little blip in form. His whole demeanor looks, I don't know what it is, whether it's unhappiness that when Cavani plays, he plays at number 9, because that's another thing that you could say. When Zlatan came in, he wasn't happy to be shifted out to the wing. So is this reoccurring again? Are we seeing that with Martial? Are we seeing that he's unhappy that he's not playing his preferred position? And then when he does get into his preferred position, he's not performing. And is that frustrating him? Is that sort of the angle to look at it? I mean, it's just a very difficult situation, because Manchester United are sitting near the top of the league and he hasn't even started firing yet. And I can't see Ole Gunnar Solskjaer trusting him over Cavani in the bigger games now, with the way that he played tonight.
I think, first of all, we've also got to realise that because Manchester United lost tonight isn't the end of the world, because we're already starting to talk in terms of everything is going to fall apart. Our own self-esteem as fans, as Manchester United fans, is at question here, because we're already going, this is it, it's finished. Martial will never play for United again, and it's all going to go wrong. You could go and play the next game. Martial might score a hat-trick, and we're saying completely opposite. So let's keep that in our minds, that even though we're upset by the result, and that we know that were not good tonight, and that things did fail in terms of the function of the team, that suddenly he's only going to play Cavani forevermore as the centre forward, because that's what we would all do.
He's not going to do that. Yeah,
that's not the truth. That's not the truth. So as that's not the truth, let's not kind of walk those boards, because it's really easy to say that after a bad result like tonight against a really bad team, because I don't think the Sheffield United team are at all near the levels that they were last season, that because they ground out a victory and got a 2-1 result, and that we lost it for reasons that we feel like were our mistakes, that is the season over. It's not. That's the beauty of the league. You can lose a game and then carry on and get back on it. And I actually do think we'll see plenty of resilience from Manchester United going forward now. This will give them the kick up the backside that they need. All of them. They'll all get it. They'll all get it. The manager will give it to them and they'll be fine. So we've seen this, haven't we, in the last even 2 years of Ole's reign, that when we've had a really bad defeat, that they then go on runs of good results or better kind of attitudes in terms of what we want to see in their makeup and their DNA. What I will say about this about Martial, and I think you're partially right, I don't think the Zlatan comparison is at all workable in today's scenario. It's a different world. This is a different Manchester United to the one that was Jose Mourinho took over, and when Zlatan came into the team, it's a different Anthony Martial. He wasn't ready to really be a number 9. All he had was the shirt number taken off his back. Yeah, so he did play obviously centre forward, but he was really a left-sided player at that point. So it's a different kettle of fish. So I think we should make that difference and highlight that difference from the offset. What I will say is this: Cavani coming into the football club gives United an insurance policy at striker. At number 9, it means that United can play 4-2-3-1 comfortably with him at the top. It means United can play 4-3-3 with Cavani through the middle or on the left, as he used to do at PSG. So this is all about strengthening your squad. So we already know that Cavani has been a success in terms of the squad function. And of course, if Martial's form dips any further, then Cavani plays more games. You might play Greenwood in the middle, like we've talked about. You might start looking at those options in terms of the chess match, looking at the chess board. I think with Martial, the fact that he has gone from centre forward to left side, centre forward to left side, centre forward to left side within matches, that's hurt him. There's no doubt that's hurt his confidence. So when he comes to the left, he has to kind of almost remember what he used to do 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. He almost has to remember how to play the channels. Now, one thing you said there, Haider, I'd like to pick up on. You said they didn't play the channels well today. Well, when you've got 5 at the back and 3 screening, there's no channels. That's why they didn't play the channels. You can't play the channels when there's no channels, between the actual 5 players and then the 3 in the front like this. There's no channels between my fingers.
That's where the movement has to be better, Rob. They have to be smarter.
So it's not the movement because there's nowhere to move. So what you have to do is you have to be smart with your ball retention. So that's what it's about. That means you have to create from deeper. So you either go over the top, and that's what United tried to do 2 or 3 times. And that was when United looked the most dangerous, when Pogba on the halfway line looked up and just chipped it over the back and Bruno was in. And United should have done that more tonight. But there is this kind of ego-centric nature of footballers that you think, I'm going to pass through them. We're going to play our game. Our game's better than your game. So we're going to show you. And that's just the worst thing to do against Sheffield United. Yeah, because they've got a low block and they will fight you for 90 minutes in the low block and there are no channels. So when there's no channels, you probably can't play channel football. That's just the truth. That's how it is. When you play Liverpool, there's plenty of channels because they're gonna push up, aren't they, with fullbacks? There's going to be channels between the 2 fullbacks and the centre backs, and there's going to be a channel right down the middle of the pitch. So Martial, Greenwood, Rashford, love that. When there's no channels, what do you do? So that was 5 for me at half time. Well, they had to change it. So that's why I looked at that and I thought, no, Cavani needs to play on the last man for 45 minutes and at least run them and split them. If you can run and split the centre-back pairings, you're doing selfless work, but it might then open up the pitch for Bruno to kind of join in as a second wave attack. And United didn't really kind of get that. It didn't really work. Ole tried to do it, I think, in the last 10 minutes. Like Van der Beek came on for 10 minutes. Was he even in the match? He stole the ball at the other end of the pitch, but almost zero effect on the attacking end of the field. And you kind of think to yourself, another kind of opportunity for him missed, because that would have been good if he could have got a goal or an assist and kept United in that match. And
but comment his, I think. Look, I'm actually not going to criticise Ole. I put this on the players tonight. I'm not going to criticise Ole. I don't think the setup was incorrect today. I don't think selection was wrong today. He might have made maybe too many changes, but I think at the beginning of the game, everyone was happy with that selection, Rob. I don't think anyone can turn around and say, "Oh, it was a negative selection at all." I thought it was an attacking team. When you've got Pogba in the double pivot, you know that you're looking to break teams down. But the timings of the substitutions were a little bit late today. I thought bringing Van der Beek and Shaw on the 81st minute, I believe, with 9 minutes to go, was what you're going to do in the last 10 minutes. I felt like Telles struggled today as well. I don't think he was terrible. He got an assist, and that was a great cross from Maguire. But I feel like with Telles, he doesn't do what Luke Shaw does. And United lose a lot when Luke Shaw isn't marauding up that left side. The left side today, we talked about left side after the Liverpool game. We said how fantastic Rashford and Shaw were together, the understanding. Well, the left side with Telles and Rashford, we've seen hasn't worked. And then you had Telles and Martial. And United heavily attacked down the left-hand side. And unfortunately today, when that wasn't functioning, nothing else was working either. So I do think if there's one thing you can criticize Ole for today, it was the substitutions, perhaps the in-game management. But I wouldn't be going in on him saying, selection was terrible, he needs to go, because I am seeing a few comments saying, Ole needs to answer for today. It was just one of those performances, and it felt like that very early on when Mason missed that shot and it went in. And we saw, it went wide, and you would have put your house on Mason to score that. So, I don't know if you agree with that, but that's where I'm sitting with Ole on this. Substitutions should have been made earlier, but apart from that, I put this on the players today. I just don't think that they were good enough.
I think whenever you lose a football match, you can always put it on the players. So, and if we did that, then this football analysis is pointless, isn't it? Because as we said, kind of what the reasons today, what we felt in terms of United's performances in kind of midfield and defense and the attack, they kind of mean nothing if you don't assess the selection. This was not the game to rotate. Manchester United have got a big enough squad to rotate in the cups. And that's why I'm never that interested in the cup competitions. In the Premier League, every 3 points is like a cup final. So playing Sheffield United, who are clearly going to come and play with a low block, you put your best 11 out, Haider. So that is on Ole. So it's not a case of whether Ole has to answer to it or not. He also has to take his share of the responsibility. I don't think tactically he did anything wrong in the 4-2-3-1. We can talk about nuance, like you said, with Telles. There's no doubt that Telles doesn't give you the same kind of motor on the left in terms of being defensively sound, but also getting on the front foot that Luke Shaw's been giving us. Luke Shaw's been our best player. So effectively, we kind of dropped our best player today. Yeah, but our best player maybe the last 5 or 6 matches. And we expect that a guy who's not played any matches to give you the same kind of performance. Well, if you're playing the team at the bottom of the table, logic might say to you, well, this is the time to give him minutes. But for me, if you're now in a position to win the title, and United still are, even with this defeat, they're still at the right end. They're at the business end. They're where they should be after, you're looking at coming up to 20, 25 games. You want to still be in the mix. You need to play your best teams. United need to play their best team every game when they can. And yes, if you get to a cup match, rotate like hell. Give people rest. Give them a week off. Go and send people on holiday. Put your feet up for a bit. And that's the day to do it. For me, Shaw should have started today. I wasn't upset that Shaw wasn't starting when I looked at the starting lineup. But it did worry me, and that's why I tweeted one word, nervous, because I was nervous that what would happen happened, and it did happen. So that is on Ole, and I back Ole. I don't think he's tactically a bad manager. I think that he's got ideas about what Manchester United should be, and he would love to have a full rotation of players in the same way that, say, Pep Guardiola has. Pep Guardiola's bench can come on and mix it up, and you can lose Kevin De Bruyne and beat someone 5-0. Manchester United are not at that level at the moment. You can't take out your 1 or 2 best players, a Luke Shaw at the moment, a Bruno Fernandes, and expect to beat teams off the bat. And I think that's where we are with Man United, and we saw that tonight. So no, I think Ole has to take some responsibility, Haider. I know what you're saying, and we all might have looked and picked that team if we're trying to rotate. Again, I always use that analogy of championship manager and say, well, would we do the same things? It's not really about that. It's about playing what's in front of you. And I think Ole should have really stuck to his guns of not rotating in Premier League matches, because
does that come with experience, Rob? Do you think?
Partly. No, but I think it's trust, Haider. I think Ole is trying to put trust in his players. He's saying to these guys, "You're my boys. Yeah, I want to blow you up and big you up and tell the world that you're doing everything for me." You know how Ole is? He's a blue sky guy. That's how he operates, and he wants to be able to say these players are doing it for me. That's why I rotated. I brought Tuanzebe in today, like he did say before the match. There was a little caveat with some of the changes. And they said, Tuanzebe's playing. What do you think? And he was like, I would have played Eric Bailly today, but Eric Bailly got injured in training. So Axel's ready. It's a good opportunity for him. He's done really well in the cup competitions. So it's a good chance for him. Well, today, Axel Tuanzebe, as a one-off in 90 minutes, failed. He didn't have a very good game. He wasn't awful. It's not the end of his Man United career. People will say, sell him, buy another defender, get Upamecano, go and get, Koulibaly. No.
Rob, let's answer this question. Actually, it's a good question from Monitoring FC. Guys, we'll take some questions now, so get them in the comments. Thank you for all your comments, as usual, on the show. What's the way ahead now for Tuanzebe, Rob? He's clearly 4th choice. He needs to play regularly, in my opinion. I think alone will be doing quite well.
You think alone we're doing well? So you'd be happy for him to leave?
Well, if United are gonna invest in a centre back, okay, I know that's more. We're talking FIFA here, or Football Manager.
It's not happening now, is it? They're not buying a centre back tomorrow, so it's not happening. So,
yeah, obviously not now, but in the summer, for example, let's say Manchester United do go and invest in a centre back. Axel's at a really, really important time in his career. He should be playing regularly. He seems to have gotten over those injuries that held him back over the last year or two. I'd be sending him to a Premier League club and playing, because I really do think Axel Tuanzebe can be a Manchester United centre-back. I really do. And I think today I've seen a lot of people criticising him, but it's very difficult. I said the same with Van der Beek last week, or against Liverpool in the Cup, that when you're not playing regularly and then you're thrust into a game to play straight away, then it can be difficult to get into your rhythm. So I do think with Axel, I think he's really, really talented. I want to see him play more, but it's no use for him sitting on the bench. Yes, we need him right now. Bailly got injured, and Axel was the right choice. Obviously, Sheffield United are much more physical, so him over Lindelof makes sense. Lindelof will play on the weekend, but he needs to play regularly for his development as a centre-back. And I just think that he's clearly not going to get that at Manchester United at the moment. Why not go and play elsewhere and develop your game and then come back to Manchester United ready to play and to stake a claim in a starting spot?
Because human beings can only stand still for so long, Haider. So this is the way I look at it with Tuanzebe. And let's talk about the here and now, and then think about projections. Thinking about a loan today means nothing. So in terms of the future, in say 6 months or whatever, that's a completely different story. And you assess it then. That's when you make your choices. But with Axel Tuanzebe at the moment, I think what we saw today, he's fourth choice for a reason. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. And I would say he is fourth choice. Like,
so in any team sport, there's a pecking order. So there's a pecking order, and you have to break through that order. So at the moment, we can see the first choice in Ole's head still is going to be Lindelof and Maguire. That's who he trusts. That's going to be his pairing. We know that pairing lacks pace. And the guy who's come in and been able to break that up and maybe get more minutes than any of us thought he would is Bailly. So they're your three. So then it's like, what do you do with Tuanzebe? Well, this is the truth, Haider. If we're going forward and we're going to go and buy another centre-back next summer, that is the end of Tuanzebe at Manchester United. Gone, sold, finished. That's the way it works. You can't have, 8 centre-backs and kind of work your way through them and say, well, you go on loan this week and you go on loan next month.
Rojo looks like he's off, Rob, so that's one off the...
So Rojo's gone, Phil Jones has gone, right? In terms of long-term, Chris Smalling has gone. So we have 4 centre-backs at Man United. That's not too many. Yeah, well, you saw tonight, Bailly got injured in training. You need a guy to step in. So I've got no worries about Tuanzebe stepping in that scenario. I do think Tuanzebe needs more minutes. I think he looked rusty tonight. I don't think he suddenly looks like a bad centre-back, but he wasn't great tonight. But like we said, chemistry issues, him and Maguire didn't quite work for whatever reason. Sheffield United didn't expose him or anything like that. Not really. There was none of that. It was just that the results so bad that everyone's licking their wounds now because we lost the game. So we're kind of asking bigger progressive questions. What's his future? Well, his future is going into training tomorrow and being better. That's the first bit. Yeah, that's what he does. Get a kick up the arse, be better. So after that, in the summer, we can reassess it. And if you go and buy Upamecano, you might sell 2 of them. You might get Upamecano in. You might go and get Koulibaly in. You might then go, do you know what? It's time to sell all of the primary centre-backs that you would bring in. We might then say Bailly gets injured too much. Like, it's worrying that Bailly took a knock in training and then wasn't available for this game. So that's an issue because it's an issue all the time. So that's the kind of thing that if I'm Ole, I'm thinking about and thinking, next year, is he going to get injured again? Is he four times a year where I'm going to lose him? That's a problem. That would be more likely to say that Tuanzebe stays at the football club, because you might look at Bailly and say he's not reliable. His body's not reliable. I'm not talking about his game, but he's not reliably to be fit. Therefore, he goes, I keep Tuanzebe and then I buy a centre-back. There's no reason to kind of look at Tuanzebe and say that he can't be a success at Manchester United. It's just tonight was a bad day at the office for him. He wasn't particularly good, but there were several players like that who were not good today. So jury's out, I think, for him. And I think that there's plenty of time for him. He's still young enough. But I don't subscribe to the fact that we say, oh, do you know what? Give him another year at a Premier League club next year. No, if he's not good enough for now, for the squad, sell him. Get 20 million for him and stick that towards your 80 million pound centre-back. That's how you do it. There's no need to kind of tread water for too long, Haider. If he's either going to be useful or not useful. If he's not useful, sell him. And if he's useful, keep him.
It does also depend, Rob, though, on what Ollie's perception is. He could go, let's say he went to Villa, just an example, because he's been at Villa before, and he went and we sold him for 20 million. And he goes on to be an absolutely top centre-back, because everyone knows that, this as well. I've watched him from when he was younger as well, coming out the system. He's very highly rated, Rob. He's a leader as well. He is a player who United have always been banging on about, that Axel Tuanzebe is going to be a fantastic centre-back. I know that we see a lot of players with potential and they don't fulfill it, but at what point, does Ollie give him some regular opportunities to play? Because we thought that would be this season. I know there's a pecking order, but when United was struggling in defence, he wasn't an option. So that's where I'm like, well, if you're not going to play him, then a loan's a good option. I'm thinking more long term.
Do you think he wants to do that?
If you're not getting regular game time, I'd rather go and play on loan than sit on the bench and be behind Lindelof and Bailly.
I'd just say, sell me, please. I want to go and get on with my life. This is the problem. We all think that playing for Manchester United is the opus, and it is for us because we're United fans. But it's not always the opus for players. Now, these players want to play for us. There's no doubt about it. But you have to be patient. You have to wait till there's injuries. Then you get your chance. That's how you do it. And when you get those kind of limited minutes, like say Van der Beek has this year, I think he's played something like 20 odd games or 22 games. He's had minutes, but they've just been small, and it's really hard to be impactful in small minutes. Now, when you're a centre back, you tend to get longer minutes. You start matches, you come in maybe when there's been an injury, you get longer runs. So looking at Tuanzebe, that's what he needs. He needs a bit of a run. But at the same time, Haider, we're just talking here about rotation killing you. So you can't rotate him in and say, do you know what? The other two centre-backs are better than you at the moment, boy, but I'm going to play you because I think you're my long-term option. It doesn't make sense. You're trying to win games here and now. So this is the whole thing with Tuanzebe. If Ole believes that he is maybe even a future captain of the football club, this is how he's been talked about behind the scenes with the coaches and with all the staff at Manchester United, then of course you try and retain him. But there does come a point of no return. There always comes a point with players where you go, well, do you know what? You can't just kind of put them in cotton wool and wait until they're ready. Chelsea have tried to do this for years with players, 40 players out on loan just in case one comes good. It doesn't work. Those players don't come back. You either decide that you're going to have faith in that player and say, do you know what? Axel Tuanzebe, I believe in you, and I'm going to sell Bailly, and you're going to step up the order. That's one option. Or the other option is, Axel, we're going to go and buy a big centre-back. It's going to cost us 80 million quid. We've decided we're going with Maguire, and you are not going to get games. What do you think about that? And I'm sure he won't be saying, well, just loan me. He'll be saying, sell me. Let me go and carry on my life. This is humanity as well. Like, we talk about football, but it's actually humanity. It's like, what do you do with human beings sometimes? And the truth is that if you're not willing to give Axel Tuanzebe the start that maybe lots of people think he should have, then you let him go. That's what you do. And it would be painful to see him go to Villa, become a world-class centre-back, and end up at Real Madrid or Chelsea or somewhere else. And then you go, but it does happen. Manchester United did that with a guy called Paul Pogba once, and what happened with him? So these things do happen, but you have to accept it. You have to say, do you know what? He might become better somewhere else, but in our timeline of success, it doesn't fit what we're doing. So we're going to go and buy Upamecano. That's how it is. But as things stand today, United are not buying Upamecano. The player they've got is Axel Tuanzebe. So that's why I always say dream scenarios are fine, but we also have to operate in here and now.
Yeah, well said. Guys, keep your questions coming in. So there's been a few regarding the game on the weekend, Rob. I'm going to pick this one out by Christian. Do you think that Ollie will come back to Fred and McTominay? Yes, I do. That's definitely, they didn't play tonight. They're definitely going to play on the weekend.
They should have played tonight. They should have played tonight.
I'm not so sure.
I think, but look, when you play a team that's combative and they want to beat you up, you go and beat them up. That's how you do it.
I don't think we lost a physical battle today. That's what I don't.
Yeah, but I don't think that we engaged the physical battle. Not really. Not on their kind of terms. This is the whole thing. Like, it wasn't a game where an old school game where they were smashing us and things like that. There's sometimes you just have to outrun the opponent and work harder than them. And Fred and McTominay would have worked harder than that Sheffield United midfield. And that then opens the game up for players like Pogba and Rashford wider. So I would have liked to maybe have seen, hypothetically, Pogba higher up the pitch, because that's where you need the intricacies. And at the base, you need to be able to just play it simple. And Fred and McTominay can play it simple. You think about the two goals and you think about how they got the corner. The corner came from exactly the same way of giving the ball away cheaply higher up the pitch and not having a screen. So because the double pivot wasn't screening tonight, Matic was deep, but Pogba wasn't.
Yeah, Matic was almost slotting as a centre-back, wasn't he? It was
like later on he was. Yeah, but he always does that. That's kind of, it's a tactic that everyone knows. Sheffield United would have known exactly what he was going to do today. And it helped Sheffield United. That tactic allowed Sheffield United to have a little bit more space in the creative areas, even though they didn't exploit it. But I think if you have Fred and McTominay in this kind of game, they get to the ball before the Sheffield United midfielders, and then you're away. So it's not counter-attacking, but it's being aggressive. United, we're not aggressive enough today. Can we all have a consensus of that? Do we think that was true?
I don't agree with that. I mean, look, we've got 8.
You don't think we were aggressive enough?
No, I don't think we were not. I don't think we were not aggressive enough. I don't think that was the reason why we lost the game today. I mean, Paul's saying
I think we lost the game
Yeah.
because we weren't aggressive enough.
I don't think it's too aggressive. I think we made mistakes, Rob. That is it. We made mistakes.
No,
and
we
that's why.
did, but I think those mistakes come through being not aggressive enough. I think if you're aggressive in your kind of mindset and aggressive in how you approach the game of football, then you get away with so much more, Haider. You know, like when you're going for that header and you don't quite get it, you know, at least you wipe the player out and the ball doesn't end up in the back of the net. You know, if David De Gea, like we just said there, getting the push in the back, so he doesn't get the push in the back and he misses the ball. What do you want your goalkeeper to do? You want your goalkeeper to take everyone out, go through and beat. Axel Tuanzebe in that moment goes up, doesn't he? And it looks like he's almost trying to flick it on or something. And really, he should be taking one step back and attacking the ball. It's an aggressive mindset. The double pivot was not aggressive tonight. The double pivot was shaky, was kind of lopsided. It was Pogba heavy. The ball was going to Pogba. He's on his own. He gets isolated. It didn't work. That
as expected when you play that double pivot, when you have 76% possession, Rob, there's no surprise really, is there? That and Matic isn't gonna. He's not going to be as progressive, obviously, as Paul Pogba. No, so I think what they did, you saw really early on, there was one very, very good sort of move from Pogba at the beginning where he sort of went through three players right at the beginning. I thought, oh my God, they're going to be all over him all game. And they were, really. Considering that, I mean, he came out as United's highest scored player on Who Scored. So he was United's best player, but along with Maguire. But yeah, it felt a little bit one-dimensional. That's my problem. One-dimensional, slow, very one-paced. I just didn't feel like United got out of second gear really today.
So lacking aggression then.
Anyway, we'll move on to the next question.
Move the ball around. Aggression is not just punching people in the face. People must make sure I'm not saying
intensity is a better word, Rob.
Intensity is a better word, but I actually don't think that in times of where United were maybe in their best moments, sometimes it's not just the intensity. The aggression has to come from your body language. Yeah, and people might say, well, that also is intensity. I don't think it was those things. I just want, at that point in my double pivot has to go to war, Haider. That's how I look at my double pivot. When I think about selections, I'm thinking my double pivot has got to go and hurt people if I want them to. Man United's double pivot hurt nothing today. They didn't. Matic was a centre-back, like you said, for most of the game, and Pogba was kind of freely trying to influence the match, but getting caught, isolated. That's not his fault. That's the shape of the team. Yeah. So that is on Ole. So Ole makes that decision.
Fullbacks pushed up, and it was just Pogba playing alone.
But when you play Arsenal, or you go and play other teams, and you say, "Oh, well, let's go back to McFred." There's a reason why we say go back to McFred, and that's because you want to be aggressive. You want to beat them to the ball. You want to make sure that when they've got possession, that you're going to hurt them. Sheffield United were never going to have a lot of possession tonight, and obviously they didn't. But United were not aggressive enough in the key moments. Call it intensity, call it however you like. I call it aggression because when you're out on that pitch, that's how I would feel as a player. Sometimes you just got to go through the player. You know, you got to be there and meet them. It doesn't matter if you get the ball. You've got to show that you're aggressive. That shows your opponent that you mean business.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Rob, question here. Who'd you start up front versus Arsenal on Saturday? Look, I'm nervous about this game, Rob, because our record against Arsenal, especially under Ole, is not good, especially at the Emirates. I believe we haven't won this, or we haven't beaten Arsenal under Ole at all. They're hitting some nice form as well. They've got some, Smith Rowe and Saka are playing well. I am quite nervous for this game. Another sort of part to this question is, when do we feel like Amad Diallo will be phased into the picture? I don't think he's ready yet. He's training with United. I think Ole said about a month, didn't he, Rob? A month before we might see Diallo. I don't think right wing is really our problem right now. There's a lot of other issues. I think, throwing Diallo in could either be an absolute masterstroke or it could be an absolute, it could kill the kid's confidence. I think from what we've seen of him, he looks like he could surprise a few people, but I don't know because I'm not there on the training ground. But I wouldn't be rushing him in at all. In terms of the Arsenal game, it will be McFred. Look, United they've got to keep it tight. That's how I feel. And they've got to play on the counter. That's how I think they need to play.
I might sound like a bit of an idiot to some fans, but I am less bothered about Man United going to Arsenal than I was about Sheffield United coming to Manchester United. We are better on the road. We're better against teams that play. There's more holes. There's channels to exploit. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about that in the first instance. Arsenal, I've watched loads of them for work this season. They're not very good. So they have moments. They play well against United. But this season, I watched obviously the Southampton game as well. They're not great. They've got young lads who are playing well at the moment, but I'm not worried about Arsenal. I really, really am not worried about
Rob,
Arsenal.
don't jinx it, mate. Come on.
But Arsenal were good enough to beat Man United when Man United don't bring it. Of course, if Manchester United bring their level of performances that we've seen in the last few months, it will be okay. That's what I think. I trust that they can get back on the horse and start riding it. I was more worried when you're playing against a low block. Arsenal are not going to play low block against Man United. Right, so that's the first kind of click. There was 2 more questions to that part. Who do you play up top? Up top, you can't consider Amad Diallo at the moment in any way, shape, or form. He's just come to the club. He's a boy. He's going to be on a fitness program now for the next month to be ready for the Premier League. Fans have to realise that playing in the Premier League is like the elite level of football fitness, and he won't have that. He's been not even featuring in a team in Serie A for the last 6 months. He's had a very, very little game time. Of course, the talent dictates that he will get there. So you hope so in terms of months ahead, going ahead. But let's not talk about him at the moment. Who's going to play in that game? United will play 4-2-3-1, no doubt about it. Who is your 3?
Dan James.
Do you know what? Possibly might happen. But I think he'll stick with Rashford because he always sticks with Rashford.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at the shape, Rashford is better on the left, we know, than the right. And I think you play Cavani through the middle and you play Greenwood on the right. Greenwood looks okay on the right. Greenwood looks fine on the right, in terms of his work rate and stuff. And it's just a case of building it up slowly, game by game by game. So you give him an hour, then you give him 70 minutes, then you give him 80 minutes. And that's kind of how you build up a player over a period of weeks. So there's no issue with that. I personally would not be starting Anthony Martial at all. I think after that performance, really the punishment should be you go and sit on the bench. That's the punishment. And you know what? If you're lucky, you might get 20 minutes at the end of the Arsenal match. So there has to be that's how hierarchy works in terms of opportunities, and opportunities have to be earned. But at the same time, if you throw your opportunity away, then you go and sit on the bench. It's kind of fun. I'm not saying ostracize him, tell him he's the worst player in the world or anything like that. I'm saying, well, this week you sit on the bench because you didn't give it to me against Sheffield United. It was always going to be a harder game tonight, Haider, than playing Arsenal going ahead. Arsenal might beat you. Arsenal might be the better team. Obviously, Arsenal are better than Sheffield United, but they might give United less problems simply because of the things that United are good at. And I think that's what it will be. It will be Lindelof. It will be Maguire. They'll sit deep. They'll be stronger. Shaw will come in. Shaw will cause more problems on the left. I thought Wan-Bissaka looked good on the right today progressively. He was doing his work. He was getting in there. He just unfortunately doesn't have an end product. That's a long-term issue.
I thought he was better today, Rob. He got into good positions.
He was better. He was better. Yeah, he was better. And again, your double pivot have to go and do all the hard work. So if you're playing a team like Arsenal, who are a possession team and want to play around there, you're going to play McFred. Doesn't matter whether you like him or whether they're tactically better or, better with the ball or economical, all these things. You play them like that. And at least if you play them like that, then you can maybe do different things with Pogba. Of course, if you play Cavani through the middle, there's every chance you play Pogba left and Rashford right and go and say to Mason, you sit on the bench as well. So that's another option for Ole.
Where does Pogba play? Because this is a question from Paul here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think you can either say, if you want to play 4-2-3-1 and you want to play counter-attack, then you want pace in the 3 behind the 1. So that's a kind of given. However, if you think you can pick the lot from slightly deeper, then you play Pogba on the left, Rashford on the right, and then you play through the middle Cavani with Bruno as the 10. So again, these things they're not huge kind of lateral decisions for Ole. It's more just about what Ole wants that game plan to be at that moment. So I would not be surprised to see Pogba play on the left. He's not going to drop Pogba. But I still think Pogba is better in that 3 on the left than he is in the pivot. He's more effective. Whereas in the pivot, it's not that he's bad either. Like today, he didn't have a bad game per se, but it was just
one of the better performances.
It was the shape of the pivot that kind of, United are on the front foot, so it means Pogba can be released a little bit more. But as I keep saying, the pivot for me is a defensive function. It's not an attacking one. It's about looking after and saying, if Maguire gets caught out of position or higher up the pitch, that you've got coverage. And Pogba and Matic are not really they don't give you coverage in that way, whereas Fred and McTominay would absolutely give you coverage. They'll be burning themselves to make sure they try and win that football match. And sometimes you need a little bit of that. Sometimes you don't need finesse, Haider. Sometimes you just need a bit of fight. And I think those two guys will come in and allow the forwards then to go and play their game. But for me, Anthony Martial, go and sit on the bench, mate. You've lost your opportunity for a bit, and it's a sad thing for him because I've backed him, but I just think that the way things stand, I think he's now unstartable, which is a problem because it takes another piece out of your jigsaw. It might mean that he comes on as a substitute and scores the winner, and then suddenly we're kind of reset again, and he's back in the starting lineups. But it is what it is. You lose a game to Sheffield United, there will be an inquest.
Oh yes, I his spot back, Rob. Rob, final word. Let's talk about the final word. As you say, never get too high, never get too low. What I will say is that Manchester United have been on a fantastic run of form. We were brilliant in December, brilliant in January up till this point. A defeat is always going to come. I'm not saying that today was acceptable. It was absolutely unacceptable, and I was very upset about it. But at the end of the day, the season isn't done. We're not lost. There's still opportunities for us to climb back into it. And I just think that it's about how the boys react. It's about how Ollie reacts. You go and win your game this weekend, and you go and take each game as they come. As you said earlier on, the boys will be very bitterly disappointed. And I don't want people to look. I can't control what people do, but I just think that it's unproductive to overreact, to lay into the players. I just think that we've got to take this on the chin, and we've got to move on and think about the next game. Games are coming thick and fast, and we just need to get back onto winning ways.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Same old cliches, isn't it, at the end of the day? When you look at this, it's not the end of the season today. It's a defeat, and it's a bad defeat, and we're all hurting. I certainly am. I'm sat here. When that game final whistle blows, and us guys who work in the media, and then you got to go and sit in front of a camera and talk to people around the world. It really is the worst thing, but that's your job, so you've got to get on with it. Even though inside you're hurting and inside you're in pain. But these things, you have to kind of look at them in a cold light of day. Manchester United were their own worst enemies today. And that is going to happen at some points in the season. Hey, Liverpool lost 7-2 to Aston Villa. Do you think they wanted to lose 7-2 to Aston Villa, or was it 7-1? You do lose games that you expect to win. It happens all the time in football. But it's more about how you respond. So we have seen certainly over a 12-month, 18-month period that United have got good at responding to adversity. They've gone away, they've licked their wounds, they've cleaned up, and they've got on with the job. And that's why United are where they are now in the top four. They're challenging for the title on paper. And, a lot of us might not believe that they are genuine title challengers just because of the shape of, say, United squad compared to City's or even Liverpool's.
Table doesn't lie.
The table doesn't lie. But what does change in terms of your responsiveness to bad results is how do you actually get yourself back up to where you want to be in here? Because you win and lose games in here. That's where it starts. And I think with Manchester United, they have got that sorted over a long period of time. Now, I might be wrong. We might go to Arsenal. It might be horrendous. But for me, I think they'll go to Arsenal and they'll be biting their lip from now until the start of that game. And they'll be wanting to go out there and hurt Arsenal. And that's a good thing. In the past, maybe a year or two or three ago, United would have lost a game like this to a team in the bottom three and gone on a 6-game run of not winning matches, of looking absolutely abject. And that would be the end of your season because you'd have dropped, 12 points in a 6-game run or something like that. And you then can't compete. I don't feel that's where we are. Even tonight, Haider, with how bad it was, and me saying that there was a lack of aggression or certain things didn't work, the pivot didn't work, the forwards didn't help themselves in terms of having to drop and create. All of those things, there was still an intent about United to try and win the game. And when they got back to 1-1, I honestly thought we'd win it. I thought, this is typical of United.
So did I, actually. So I felt like that for years, Rob.
Exactly. At 1-1, so we've double bluffed ourselves. But ultimately, that's where we are. That's where United are at the moment, is that when you get back in a game like that and it's 1-1 with 20 minutes to go, you feel good. You go, this team can do it. And it didn't happen today. But it has happened repeatedly over the last year. So I think they'll go. I think they will smash that dressing room up after. Do you know what? think they'd have gone back in that dressing room and smashed it up to shreds, because they will be gutted that they just lost to a team like Sheffield United. No offense to Sheffield United, they've got their own troubles this year, but they're not very good, and they weren't even good tonight. They just sat in and did their job. So good luck to them. That was all they could do, and then all they could do was fingers crossed that United had a bad day at the office, and that's exactly what happened. I think United will go to Carrington. They'll sort it out. They'll watch the tape. I don't think Ole will overreact. I think he'll absolutely give daggers to 2 or 3 players. I think he'll be saying, I need more. But the biggest regret of tonight for me is that we rotated in a game we shouldn't have rotated. If you put your best 11 out today, I think you win the game after half an hour.
Yeah.
Put your best team out today, you're 2-0 up after half an hour, and the game's over. And that was the gamble.
Take players off, and
Ole's gambling, like most managers do when they rotate. Like Klopp's done it, hasn't he? In recent weeks, he's put Salah on the bench, he lost the game. This is the kind of what happens. Oh, here we go. Burnley beat Liverpool last week. That was because Klopp rotated. So you do that. But the issue for the manager is that when you're standing at the table and you've got to roll 2 dices, they're trying to hope that they don't have to roll 2 sixes. They just think if they get a 6 and a 4 or a 6 and a 3 or something, that's good enough to win the game at that table. United tonight couldn't roll 2 sixes. That was the problem. They couldn't get where they were without the rotation affecting them. The rotation was a problem today. That's on the manager. The manager thought he could get away with it. He couldn't. He thought he was resting people. He probably thought, I need Luke for Arsenal. I'll give him a day off. He'll be fine. And we'll win and Tellers is ready. It's not whether Tellers is ready or not. He is ready. He's just not ready enough. So that's, I think, where we stand at United. Not the worst thing in the world. A horrendous defeat, no doubt. But you've got to just get on with it. It's just the way it is. A bad day at the office. Go and fix it in training, and then go and beat the next team. The next team's an Arsenal team. They're young. They're inexperienced. They're not playing consistently well. They've played well against us. We know this. They've done really well against us, in fact, in the last 12 months. But go there and show that you're a championship contender. If you're a championship contender, you can go to the Emirates and you can go and beat that Arsenal team and you can go and hurt them. And that's the mindset. Go and be aggressive. Go there and put your foot through Smith Rowe in the first minute and send him into Rose Ed. Yeah. And tell him he's not going to get an easy night. Yeah. I want Wan-Bissaka doing that. That's the kind of thing I want to see, is that sometimes you don't have to be nice and kind. You sometimes have to do the hard work with all the
nasty side is important, Rob.
Be nasty when you need to be nasty. Like, I don't think Sheffield United were particularly nasty today. They just sat in, but United weren't nasty at all. United were kind of all very nice, and even at the end of the game, you're kind of going, oh, really? Is that as aggressive as we can be in this scenario? I don't believe it was. I just think that as it rolled out, it didn't go the way that United wanted it to be. Go to Arsenal, show them you can be more physical than them, and you can outplay them, and you can be bigger than them, and you've got more experience, and you've got more pace, and you're at the top of the table and they're not, and you're going to show why. If you can do that, then you can come away with 3 points and come away with a comfortable victory. That would be the best thing. Go and win it comfortably, and then this is forgotten, isn't it? If you win at Arsenal, then this is a blip. If you lose at Arsenal, then this is a couple of really bad results that probably take you out of the title picture long term, but still isn't the end of the world. And we are still thinking that Manchester United's real ceiling this year is second or third, aren't we? We're not crazy enough to think that we're going to win it. But if you want to be in the conversation to win it, then you have to go to Arsenal and you have to win.
Yeah, spot on. And what I would like to say, Rob, is thank you to all our listeners for joining us. Both of us, obviously, before we came on air, we were a bit like, it's difficult. We've been doing loads of podcasts recently. There have been victories and great results, and we've been delighted. And, you guys also help us through. So thank you very much for all your support as always. And thank you for joining us in the comments. And Rob, any last words?
No, just the sense that it's a bad day and you got to take the pain, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? I always say this, if you get a tooth pulled out of your mouth, it's going to hurt. And that's where we are today. We're all hurting. We can all go to bed and feel awful. There'll be people watching this podcast 4 a.m. in the future somewhere going, this is a horrible night and I've got to kind of suck it up. And I feel sorry for those guys that stay up all night to watch this football team. But that's life. I do think we're okay still, though. I don't think tonight is the night where you think suddenly we need to change the team. I'm glad no one has done in the comments, oh, if we had Sancho, we'd have been all right tonight. We've kind of moved away from that already. Yes, another centre-back would be nice, but it's not always about changes or transfers. And it's not also always about tactics. It's sometimes just the kind of smaller margins that get you over the line. And tonight United just weren't good enough. As simple as that.
I agree. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back after the Arsenal game on Saturday. So make sure you tune in. If you're watching this on Twitter, jump over to YouTube and give us a subscribe if you really enjoy our content. Myself and Rob are back pretty much every game. That's twice a week nearly for the next 2 months for every Manchester United match. So make sure you check us out. This is a Masterclass, the Manchester United Tactical Podcast, and we will see you next time.
It's going to be Arsenal.